I'm a member of the Alternative News Collective, which is the student group at MIT that puts out the Thistle. We're proud to be able to co-sponsor this important discussion of United States foreign policy and Haiti by Chavannes Jean Baptist and Professor Noam Chomsky. Before we begin, though, I'd like to say a few words about the importance we place upon maintaining MIT's traditional role as a location for important discussions like this. Until recently, we at the Thistle have had no problem reserving rooms for talks by Noam Chomsky and others on important political issues such as this. Over the past 4 months, however, MIT's procedures on reserving rooms for student groups have changed. In order for the schedules office to reserve a room for us now, we must fill out the following form in triplicate and get signatures on it from Susan Allen, a staff member at the Dean's Office, Sergeant G.T. Eldred of the campus police, and the accountant for student groups. The amount of time we spend, that's right. The amount of time we spend on administrative details for reserving rooms such as this has risen from a few minutes to literally a few hours. An event that's likely to involve over 100 people or have any transaction of cash requires an MIT security officer. If it's after business hours, that security officer has to be hired for a minimum of 4 hours at $20 an hour. That's right. So the money that you've given to help this political cause, about $80 of it is going to the nice security officer outside and his family. The sound system, if it's required, requires hiring MIT personnel as well, minimum of 4 hours, and renting the equipment. That would have cost over $100 for this event. Thankfully, Charlie Welch, who's sitting right there with CASA, has agreed to help us out on this. So, as I see it, there's two possible reasons that the rules have changed. Either someone at MIT has decided that the Institute no longer supports open discussion by the Cambridge community of important political issues, or someone is misapplying the Institute's policies in this regard. In either case, the policymakers at MIT should be aware of the support for free and open discussion on its campus. To that end, I ask you to call Susan Allen, whose phone number you should have, and to write Art Smith and Charles Vest to let them know how you feel about this matter. Their numbers and addresses are being passed through the hall. I ask you also to sign the petition that's being circulated for that purpose. Anyway, thank you for your patience, and thanks for your support.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming. The last time I was in this very auditorium was, I imagine, 2 years ago, when a number of women in this city organized the Women of Color tribute to Audre Lorde. It was as crowded as it is tonight. Audre Lorde, you know, who was a very activist, political, feminist author, who very proudly, let me say, hailed from Grenada and completed her intellectual and political work in the United States on behalf of women, on behalf of all discriminated sectors, has died about a year now. And I feel her spirit and the spirit of that organizing group of women as we meet here again. My name is Decima Williams, and I am very honored to work in the popular support movement for the Haitian Revolution. I serve as co-chair of the New England Observers Delegation to Haiti, which is a group of about 30 of us. We came together 3 months ago, essentially to be present and to give support to the restoration of President Aristide, actually to give life to what I call Aristoration, the restoration of Aristide and democracy to Haiti simultaneously. And in our Aristoration work, what we have done, I imagine we are doing 3 basic things. One is to go to Haiti and be witnesses there with the Haitian population, and in particular with the pro-democracy movement. Our first such mission was in the 30th of October. We were there for 6 days, and we have issued a report for those of you who may want to hear and to read for yourselves. Our 20-page report is available. I think there may be copies here, and I'll be happy to tell you about it afterwards. Our second mission is leaving on Wednesday, another group. Our first group was 16 persons. We will now have a mission of 10 persons who will go on the 15th, and this group is going to be there for the 16th of December, which was the date in 1990 that President Aristide was elected. From a field of 11 candidates, he garnered a majority of 67% of the vote. Our delegation will be there for 4 days, the 15th to the 19th, and we will again report when we come back. Let me announce that our third delegation will go in early February. The 7th of February is the day on which President Aristide was inaugurated. And if any of you have seen Ellen Wolpert's slideshow, you will see what a festive occasion it was. So our third group will leave probably around the 5th or 6th to be there for the 7th of February. I'm particularly excited about that because it is the day of Grenada's national independence. I come from Grenada. And I remember the 7th of February 1986 in the streets of Washington how we danced when Jean-Claude Duvalier was lifted by a miraculous hand, shall we say, from Haiti. So that's what our observer delegation has been doing in the main. Secondly, we are reporting and keeping active in the New England area, and I invite you to ask any of us, are there any other members of the delegation here? They're probably all over at RCC getting ready to leave. But Basile, Jean-Baptiste, and myself are the co-chairs, and we'll be happy to have you participate in our deliberations and our meetings. And our third activity is to work to end U.S. policy, and thus the forum tonight. We believe that the policy is not good, it's not viable, it's not democratic, and others will tell you about that. So on behalf of the New England delegation and all its sponsoring and co-sponsoring organizations, let me welcome you this evening. In one of his most celebrated works, and you probably heard him on the radio last month, I believe it was, Michel Rolph-Trouillot, who is clearly one of Haiti's most well-known scholars, in his 1990 book, Haiti, State Against Nation, had this to say, and I quote, "For better or worse, the size and social resilience of the peasantry are important aspects of the uniqueness of Haiti as an American nation. While Haitian peasants cannot be blamed for the institutions that regulate the state or for the transfer of surplus out of the countryside, their inflexible attachment to a labor process that is unlikely to generate growth or increase productivity is certainly part of the Haitian dilemma. Ultimately, there is only one Haitian question, that of the peasantry. For it is in the contradictions of the peasantry that the resources, stakes, and predictions of the nation intertwine. How to measure the limits and potential of this peasantry against the economic, social, and political and cultural problems remains an important problem. But any solution to the Haitian crisis must face the peasant question. It must find its roots in the resources of that peasantry, the very same resources that have contributed to the fortunes of thousands of Haitians and foreigners during a century and a half of unbridled exploitation. And to do this, Haitians must create institutional channels through which all sectors within the peasantry can participate in a political debate from which they have been too long excluded. Both steps in turn require that intellectuals, politicians, and planners talk less about or for the peasantry and begin listening more attentively to what its diverse subgroups have said in the past and have to say now about their own future. The long overdue reconciliation of nation and state requires the fundamental understanding that in Haiti, the peasantry is the nation. End of quote. To open our conversation on U.S. policy in Haiti, I'd like to present the founder of the Papaye Peasant Movement, MPP, which is the largest and oldest peasant movement in Haiti, founded in 1973. This leader is currently the spokesperson for the movement and for the National Peasant Congress. He's also a former member of the Presidential Commission of President Aristide, and right now he serves as a member of President Aristide's private cabinet. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce to you Chavannes Jean Baptist.
Nan nom peuple haïtien, spécialement nan nom tout mouvement paysan.
In the name of the Haitian people and in the name of the peasant movement in Haiti,
Moi vle ban nou yon salutation chargée ak soleil parce que ici à nous en bas Freddy.
I want to give you a salute filled with sunshine because I've noticed that you have a lot of cold here.
Bon, et dans le pays d'Haïti, nous gagnons soleil, mais même côté et nous gagnons un coup d'État qui a crasé le peuple là depuis plus passé 2 ans.
In Haiti, we do have sunshine, but on the other hand, we have a coup d'etat that is killing our people and has been in place for about 2 years.
Et pour nous comprendre le coup d'État ça, faut que nous fassions monter dans l'histoire d'Haïti.
To understand this coup d'etat, we have to go back in Haitian history.
Et dans le pays d'Haïti, depuis après l'indépendance, c'est toujours un si pon yon moun grand propriétaire terrien et gros commerçants et l'armée d'Haïti qui était toujours fabriqué tout gouvernement.
In Haiti, since independence in 1804, only a little group of people made of big landowners, the Haitian army, have fabricated all the governments we have had.
Gros majorité population pas de gagner pour participer, pas de gagner pour fourrer bouche li dans affaires politiques pays.
The majority of the population never had the right to intervene in political affairs in Haiti.
Et quant à paysans yo qui représentaient 80% de la population, eh bien, il y a toujours en bas toute qualité exploitation, toute qualité injustice.
As far as the peasantry, representing about 80% of our population, they have always been subject to very, very hard exploitation.
Et dictature du Valier et avec système Makout là, t'es arrivé fermer ni bouche ni yeux paysans yo et pendant environ 30 ans.
The Duvalier dictatorship with the Macoute system established by this dictatorship in Haiti, succeeded in shutting the mouth and the eyes of the peasantry.
Et cependant, à partir de 1986, les Duvaliers étaient partis et quitté le pays. Donc, paysans, toute masse peuple dans le quartier populaire commençaient à réclamer droit pour vivre tant que monde.
But nevertheless, when the Duvalier regime was overthrown, the peasantry and the masses in general started demanding the right to live as human beings.
Ils ont commencé à faire revendication pour gagner terre pour le travail, revendication pour gagner l'école, revendication pour joindre soins santé.
They started demanding the ownership of the land, the right to go to school, and the right to have health care.
Mais droit ça yo, c'est un droit yo toujours refusé gros majorité population haïtienne.
That these rights have always been denied the Haitian population.
Et après 86, et peuple là, masse paysan yo commencé prendre la parole, yo commencé prendre radio pour yo capable réclamer un partage et gâteau national là, même les petits.
And since 1986, the peasantry, the masses in Haiti, started demanding the right to talk using radio and demanding also that the national cake, no matter how small it was, should be shared by everybody.
Cependant, et tout droit ça yo, comme petit groupe qui toujours a dominé le pays a refusé yo, eh bien, c'était toujours massacre et dans paysannerie depuis 86, c'est juste arrivé journée aujourd'hui.
And since the people in power, the little group in power, didn't want to abandon this privilege and give those rights to the people, we have witnessed a lot of massacres in Haiti, massacres of the peasantry since 1986.
C'est 29 novembre et 87, tu as une tentative pour organiser élection libre dans le pays, eh bien, il y a bien un peuple dans le sang, joue ça.
November 29, 1987, there was an attempt to have free election in Haiti. Result, massacre, and the people were bloodied all over the place.
Et à partir du moment ça, le peuple là pas te croire dans question élection parce que tu toujours pensé c'est même bagaille là qui va arriver.
The people stopped believing in elections, thinking that the same thing would happen again and again.
Cependant, et après 86, le peuple haïtien continue à vivre dans un duvalierisme sans duvalier. Et là, en 90, il a monté une campagne électorale avec un candidat bien précis. Eh bien, inattendument, le peuple a envahi scène politique là avec Jean-Baptiste Chavannes comme candidat.
After 1986, when the people stopped believing in election, it was expected that they wouldn't participate in any election anymore. And in 1990, elections were organized with a very, very precise candidate to be elected, but something different happened. The people assaulted the voting booths with a candidate of their own, Jean-Baptiste.
Et tout processus électoral là est marché et tout calcul était bien fait au niveau toute force qui qu'on créé président dans le pays et bien on était certain que Mac Bazin après le président.
According to the tradition and the way that things have been done in Haiti as far as elections are concerned, according to all the planifications, Marc Bazin was supposed to be elected.
Et cependant, candidature Titide bouleversait l'échiquier politique la net.
But the game was a completely different game with the candidacy of Titide.
À partir de octobre, les Titides portaient le candidat, eh bien, c'est tout le peuple là qui levait campé et il dit foi ça, nous n'apprenons élection.
From October 1990, when Aristide became candidate, the people said to themselves, this time we're going to take these elections.
Aristide paté un leader politique, il paté gain l'argent, peuple a dit bon nous pas besoin l'argent, nous-mêmes n'a fait élection et ça Aristide pas gain 5 cob, nèg qui te gain 12 millions de dollars, eh bien, yo perdu élection devant.
Aristide was not a political leader, he was not a politician, and he had no money. But the people decided that they would go and vote for their candidate. And those candidates who spent a lot of money, some of them even $12 million, lost in front of Aristide.
Donc c'était un, et c'est pour ça mouvement ça qui était porté Titi de pouvoir et la Valasse, donc son véritable tête ensemble pour changement société haïtienne.
And that's why the movement is called Lavalas. In other words, the avalanche. And this was the movement that really brought Aristide to power.
Cependant, et après élection ça yo côté peuple là, tu as voté contre macoute, contre vol dans caisse l'État, contre contrebande, contre tout ça qui t'a crasé, eh bien force anti-changement yo dit changement ça pas cap fait.
The people voted against corruption in the administration, against contraband. The people voted for change. And the forces in Haiti who refused to accept change say to themselves, we're not going to take that.
Donc, ça qui est passé en Haïti, c'était un bagage historique, Jean professeur Assodil, côté sous 11 candidats, eh bien, un candidat a emporté l'élection avec plus passé 67%.
What happened in Haiti, as the professor just said, was an historic event. One candidate winning with 67% of the votes against in a field of 10 candidates.
Et le peuple a voté pour le capable participer dans les affaires pays, les affaires politiques, les affaires économiques, les affaires culturelles. Cependant, participation ça bah, non seulement oligarchie a problème, mais elle bat impérialiste et international, spécialement impérialiste américain a problème.
The people voted to have the right to participate in the political, economic, and cultural life. But this participation gave a lot of problems, not only to those who don't want changes in Haiti, but also to the international imperialism, particularly US imperialism.
Administration américaine, là, même là, la prônait démocratie dans pays pauvres, mais c'est une démocratie qui chita sous un petit groupe, une démocratie qui chita sous une élite, mais une démocratie qui chita sous participation massive, donc il n'y a pas voulu ça, donc il n'y a pas voulu démocratie vraiment.
Even when imperialism is talking about democracy, they believe in a very specific type of democracy. The democracy of a little group, the democracy of the elite. But when the masses of people want to participate in a real democracy, now their opinion is quite different.
Et c'est pour craser participation peuple haïtien et dans les affaires pays, eh bien, coup d'État 30 septembre est monté.
The coup d'État of September 30th was staged exactly to stop the participation of the people in the affairs of the country.
Parce que démocratie qui chita sous participation peuple là, qui a commencé à développer en Haïti, eh bien, ça est capable d'envahir et Caraïbes là, envahir toute Amérique latine là, et peut-être un jour la valace est capable de descendre aux États-Unis.
Because this participatory democracy that we had in Haiti was a very, very dangerous movement. Maybe it could spread to the Caribbean, to Latin America. And who knows, maybe the flood would get up here in the United States.
Donc, c'est comme ça que l'élection en Haïti, démocratie qui chita sous participation peuple en Haïti, ce n'est pas un danger seulement pour la classe dominante en Haïti, mais un danger pour l'impérialiste là en général. Et c'est pour ça complot amarré entre impérialistes là et force anti-changement dans le pays d'Haïti pour capable bien peuple là dans le 30 septembre 91.
Since this participatory democracy is a danger not only for the oligarchy in Haiti but also for imperialism, the coup d'etat was staged as a plot, as a collusion between imperialism and those inside Haiti who cannot tolerate any change.
Et en Haïti, il y a toute une série de forces qui participaient dans le coup d'État. Ça. En plus, la MEA c'est exécutant, mais en plus de l'impérialisme, ou gagnant et bourgeoisie, patrie poche là, ou gagnant hiérarchie, l'église là, ou gagnant classe politique traditionnelle là, c'est toute force ça yo qui mettait ensemble, qui fait coup d'État.
The forces that got together to stage that coup d'État were made up, of course, imperialism and the army as the executioner, but also the high hierarchy of the church, the bourgeoisie that has their pocket as their homeland, and they are all in league with one another, those who made the coup d'État possible.
Il faut que nous comprenions, et Aristide, c'est un père, mais pas n'importe père, c'est un père dans le courant théologie libération. Et dans le document Santa Fe, que le président, que les républicains ont préparé, les Reagan, après le prendre pouvoir, il était très clair que théologie libération, c'est un danger dans le continent.
You have to understand that Aristide is a priest, but a special priest. He believes in the theology of liberation. And you have also to remember that in the document of Santa Fe, prepared by the Republicans, they saw the theology of liberation as a danger in this country.
Et si un théologien libération t'a réussi en Haïti, eh bien, non seulement parce que l'administration américaine a considéré théologie libération comme un danger, mais Vatican considérait théologie libération comme un danger. Et le continent américain, c'est plus le continent catholique que Vatican gagne un jour aujourd'hui.
You have also to understand that it is not only the American government that considers the theology of liberation as a danger. So does the Vatican. They are very deadly against it. And you have also to understand that the biggest Catholic continent right now is here in the Americas.
Donc si longtemps c'était l'Europe qui était venue évangéliser l'Amérique, qu'on y a c'est l'Amérique qui vient pour aller évangéliser l'Europe. Donc si c'est théologie, libération, alors c'est un danger pour l'Église traditionnelle.
Once upon a time, Europe evangelized the Americas. But what is the danger now is this continent is going to reteach Christianity to Europe, but not the way the hierarchy of the church would like. This is the danger.
Donc, c'est pour ça que nous sommes capables de comprendre que le coup d'État, c'est un coup d'État qui est bien préparé, et c'est pour ça qu'il frappe le peuple à fort.
So you have to understand that this coup d'État was well prepared, and that's why they were so brutal toward the people.
Donc c'est un coup d'État qui gagne en pile force nationale et internationale derrière, et comme yo connaît et peuple là, Jean te campé pour mettre Aristide, c'est pour ça répression li systématique depuis 30 septembre journée aujourd'hui.
This coup d'État, well prepared and backed up by very, very strong forces, decided that in order to stop the people, they have to be very brutal, and that's why the repression have been systematic since the coup d'État up to now.
Seule façon pour yo capable river 15 coup d'État, c'est répression, parce que yo connaît que peuple haïtien pas jamais accepter.
Repression, terror is the only way they can maintain the coup d'État, because they know that the Haitian people will never accept it.
Cependant, yo trompé yo quand même, parce que ou capable tuer moun, ou capable détruire bien, mais gen yon bagay, yo pas jamais capable tuer, c'est conscience yon peuple.
But they made a very big mistake, because you can kill people, you can destroy properties, but as far as the consciousness of a nation, this has never happened.
Et si m'ba yon exemple de répression systématique là, et suis capable de prendre MPP comme exemple.
Let me give you an example of that systematic repression, taking the MPP as an example.
Et MPP, c'est un mouvement année 93 là, fait 20 ans. Et pendant 20 ans, ça donc c'est un mouvement qui, comme c'est un mouvement paysan, qui fait un pile travail pour développer l'agriculture dans le pays. Eh bien, toute infrastructure que le mouvement a mis en place pendant 20 ans, les militaires ont détruit systématiquement.
MPP is 20 years old this year. And since it is a peasant movement, we have been working in agriculture. Now, to give you an example of the repression, all the infrastructure that we have put together in the past 20 years have been systematically destroyed by the military apparatus.
Et un exemple, par exemple, nous avons produit 1,2 million pieds bois par année, et même après coup d'État, les paysans ont essayé de faire une pépinière 45 000 pieds bois. Non seulement ils ont détruit toute infrastructure pour produire plantules, mais là ils ont découvert 45 000 pieds bois, ils ont détruit parce qu'ils ont dit que les bois sont communistes.
To give you an example, MPP had 1,200,000 trees that we were planning on planting all over the country. They were all destroyed. In spite of the coup d'etat, we still had 45,000 trees. These also were destroyed. These trees were called communist trees by the government.
Donc, après coup d'État, en pile arrestation, en pile torture, si bien que dans le mouvement paysan papaye, depuis 2 ans, il y a plus passé 5000 militants avec dirigeants qui vivent en dehors caillou, l'autre qui est paralysé, l'autre qui est handicapé avec une répression systématique dans tout le coin pays.
The repression is all over the country. And in MPP alone, we have about 5,000 casualties. People who have been killed, people who have been maimed, people who have been crippled, and people who are living in hiding since the coup.
Et depuis 2 ans, gagné yon soi-disant négociation qui a fait, eh bien, façon pour qu'un coup d'État, c'est négociation bluff qui chita sous menti et répression. Mais qu'on y a peuple clair que communauté internationale là a trompé peuple haïtien.
The way that we have been working was negotiating a settlement. But the best way to keep the coup d'etat alive is, on one hand, negotiate, and on the other hand, repress. And now the Haitian people have realized that maybe the international community was not very sincere in dealing with us.
Donc, journée jodi a, et peuple haïtien li d'abord li doit compter sur propre capacité pour li capable changer situation, mais également li veut compter sur solidarité pas gouvernement américain, mais solidarité peuple américain qui capable solidaire avec elle et pour aider détruire coup d'État, cabat coup d'État pour démocratie qui chita sous participation, moun vraie démocratie capable d'établir dans le pays d'Haïti, établi tout partout sur la terre.
The Haitian people have realized that they have first to count on themselves, but we have also to have friends. Not counting on governments, not counting on the American government, but on the American people. If we have this solidarity, we will be able not only to reestablish democracy, a real one, a true one, participative democracy in Haiti, but maybe all over the world.
Merci.
Thank you.
The floods of the South do indeed reach the North, because if we do our history well, we know that Henry Christophe, one of the first Haitian leaders, organized an immense battalion to come and help the US in its liberation of independence. Yes, the historians are among us. And the Lavalas has reached the United States in many ways, in many forms. The fact that we are even intellectually interested in this movement that has sparked the imagination of people worldwide is in itself a beginning of that movement. I do want to say that I speak from experience, because in Grenada we had a similar exercise called Participatory Democracy, People's Power, and it touched the United States, mainly by reaching Caribbean nationals, but also by those intellectuals and activists who went to Grenada, who came back and who said that in fact what was happening in Grenada was definitively an advance over colonial and post-colonial arrangements. If we are truly in an open, free trade era, let's trade ideas. Let's not be afraid of what the South has to offer. Noam Chomsky joined the staff of MIT in 1955. He's been there ever since, and he's also been everywhere. He was born in Philadelphia, where he received his PhD in linguistics in 1955, the same year he crossed the river and came here. In 1961, he was appointed full professor in the Department of Modern Languages and Linguistics, which is now the Department of Linguistics and Philosophy. From 1966 to 1976, Professor Chomsky held the Ferrari P. Ward Professorship of Modern Languages and Linguistics, and since 1976 he has held the single honor of being an institute professor. Chomsky, as everybody calls him, was in residence at the Institute for Advanced Study at Princeton in 1958 to 59. And since then, starting in the 60s, he's delivered an incredible number of distinguished lectures. The 1969 John Locke Lectures at Oxford, the 1970 Bertrand Russell Memorial Lecture at Cambridge University, the 1972 Nehru University Memorial Lecture in New Delhi, and the 1977 Heinzinger Lecture in Leiden, the Netherlands. Chomsky has received innumerable honorary degrees from the University of London, from the University of Chicago, from the Swarthmore College, from Delhi University, from the University of Massachusetts, from his alma mater, the University of Pennsylvania. He is a fellow of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences and a fellow of the National Academy of Science. In addition to all of that, he's a professional member of many learned societies in the United States, and he's a recipient of the Distinguished Scientific Contribution Award of the American Psychological Association. It is well known that Chomsky has authored innumerable books. I have on my list here some 20 and counting. And I want to present to you a speaker who has had this to say. Writing in Necessary Illusions, one of his many texts, he said, and I quote, and Chomsky, the inevitable controversial figure, "Human beings are the only species with a history. Whether they also have a future is not so obvious. The answer will lie in the prospects for popular movements with firm roots among all sectors of the population, dedicated to values that are suppressed or driven to the margins within the existing social and political order. Community, solidarity, concern for a fragile environment that will have to sustain future generations, creative work under voluntary control, independent thought, and true democratic participation in the aspects of life." Noam Chomsky, who is better known to you here at MIT as a professor, who is raising his stature within the Haitian community as a well-known intellectual and solidarity brother, I want to introduce to you the grandfather of Inti.
If you really press me hard, I'll even show you a picture of him. Which I just got from Nicaragua from a friend who just came back. The basic facts about the current situation in Haiti are clear enough. In December 1990, there was the first democratic election in the history of Haiti. It was won by Father Aristide. He was swept into power, as you just heard, with 2/3 of the vote. The United States had a candidate, a former World Bank official, Marc Bazin, who came in second with 14%. It was an enormous surprise to the United States and most other outside observers who were quite unaware of the extensive and lively popular grassroots movements that had developed in Haiti without funds, without external support, and without visibility except among the population of the country. The election led to a remarkable atmosphere of celebration. The city was refurbished. It was sparkling and clean for the inauguration. There were celebrations. There was joy and hope for an end to centuries of suffering and misery. There was a coup attempt within a few weeks after the election in January. Usually such coups immediately succeed. This one, however, was suppressed by a popular uprising of an aroused public. Terror virtually ended. The flow of refugees stopped. The new government chalked up some quite impressive successes. The U.S. turned against it at once and sought to undermine it. I'll return to that. On September 30th, a military coup overthrew the democratic government. A reign of terror was inaugurated. It reached new heights, perhaps higher than anything in Haiti's ugly history. It set off a new flow of refugees. At first, immediately after the coup, the United States condemned it, then quickly began to stand by quietly, and within a few weeks had become an unabashed apologist for the terror regime, as in the words of America's Watch, the leading human rights group, which has monitored the situation in Haiti closely. On October 8th, so just a week after the coup, the New York Times had a headline which read, "The White House refuses to link Aristide's return to democracy." That headed an article by their chief diplomatic correspondent, Thomas Friedman, who wrote that American officials have signaled privately that they are moving away from their unequivocal support of Father Aristide, took all of a week, in light of concerns over his human rights record. As you know, the Reagan and Bush administration had a very delicate sensibility with regard to human rights. Marlon Fitzwater, you'll remember the White House spokesman, he said that Washington was most interested in the restoration of constitutional democracy in Haiti, not in a particular individual. So, of course, we want democracy, but not Aristide. There was nothing new about this. Incidentally, as I say, the efforts to undermine the regime had begun at once. The Bush administration at once instituted a policy, this is now after the coup, was aimed at marginalizing Aristide and crucially marginalizing or eliminating the popular forces that he represented and undermining the OAS embargo, which they had completely done within a few months by early February. The policy was aimed at returning to power the traditional kleptocracy, the super rich, the owners of the assembly plants, the agents of U.S. business operations. Aristide would be able to return according to these plans, but only as at most a figurehead. Refugees who were by then fleeing on an enormous level because of the terror were forcibly returned or else imprisoned. We now move on to the Clinton administration. In his hearings in the Senate, the Secretary of State, Warren Christopher, in his confirmation hearings, he asked about Haiti. He simply reiterated the Bush policy. As the Times put it, Christopher expressed support for Father Aristide, but stopped short of calling for his reinstatement as president. In his words, in Christopher's own words, Aristide has to be part of the solution. I don't have a precise system worked out in my mind as to how he would be part of the solution, but he certainly can't be ignored in the matter. After that ringing endorsement of democracy, Christopher was duly confirmed. Well, the precise system had already been worked out and was soon implemented. The precise system was that of the Bush administration. At most, a figurehead role for Aristide, with power returned to the traditional rulers. Clinton made that very clear even before taking office. His first act as president, actually implemented a few days before the inauguration, was quite symbolic. During the campaign, Clinton had bitterly condemned the brutal and inhuman policy of returning refugees. actually a policy, but it had been initiated under Carter and then expanded under Reagan. So right after as he took office, he at once harshened that policy. He implemented a blockade, an actual blockade of Haiti, illegal, of course. It's as if, say, Libya were to ban all commercial flights from the United States, if you can imagine that. The naval blockade of Haiti simply forcefully returned all refugees who tried to escape. The Clinton argument was that they were not political refugees, they were economic refugees. That was determined by U.S. naval vessels, presumably by using ESP. One congressman, to my knowledge, John Conyers of the Black Caucus, has raised a question that does tend to come to mind when you observe this. The U.S. Coast Guard naval blockade seems to be able to pick up every little fishing boat that, or sailboat that escapes from Haiti with some miserable, frightened people fleeing on it to return to them to the horrors there. But so far it has been unable somehow to intercept a single boat bringing drugs in and out of Haiti. And the U.S. Air Force, and Conyers asked, you know, how is this possible? I mean, is it really so much more complicated to do this? He also pointed out that that the U.S. Air Force has been unable to detect or to prevent entry into Haiti or flight out of Haiti of any of the planes landing at the dozen or so airstrips which are used for transshipment of drugs. The State Department, meanwhile, has identified Haiti as the second largest transshipment point for Colombian cocaine after the Bahamas. U.S. There is incidentally a reason given in the press for this failure of Haiti to be able to stop transshipment of drugs. According to the Washington Post, the problem is that Haiti lacks radar, and therefore they can't pick them up. And apparently the U.S. Navy and Air Force also lack radar, since they can't seem to stop them either. The U.S., the DEA, the Department of, what's it stand for? I forgot what it was. The Drug Enforcement Agency. The Drug Enforcement Agency has announced that cocaine shipments have decreased dramatically through Haiti since the coup, which is quite interesting. Everyone is aware, including the Senate, that they have increased dramatically, but it's true that interceptions have decreased dramatically. You can draw your own conclusions for that. Maybe they're too busy trying to get the refugees back. Other questions arise. The three major oil companies, Shell, Texaco, and Mobil, were just a couple of weeks ago agreed to violate the UN embargo by providing oil to the Haitian military. Their claim is that they were ordered to do that by a court in Haiti, and therefore what could they do? The United States, of course, stands by with total impotence, unable to override the decision of the Haitian court, and again, might raise some questions. The fact of the matter is that none of this even reaches the level of absurdity. It all illustrates what's perfectly obvious all along, that there is no interest whatsoever in restoring to power a democratically elected radical priest, progressive priest, who represents popular organizations, entirely the wrong people. Well, in short, we have the Bush program being implemented. Stand by while the popular movements are decimated by terror, restore the constitutional system, but without the president, except perhaps as a figurehead, and crucially, without the popular movements that threaten traditional rule. Now, those who might be surprised by any of this simply must be ignorant of, first of all, prevailing elite attitudes towards democracy in general, and second, of U.S. relations to Haiti, and indeed throughout the region, with regard to Haiti, and now extending over 200 years. Let me say a couple of words about both of those topics. As far as democracy is concerned and attitudes towards democracy, with regard to this hemisphere, let me, instead of giving you my own views, quote from a source that's both quite knowledgeable, an insider source, and also highly sympathetic to the efforts of the U.S. government at what's called democracy enhancement. That's a man named Thomas Carruthers, who was a State Department insider in the Reagan administration working on democracy enhancement programs, and has since written some scholarly books and articles reviewing these policies, of which he was part during the 1980s. Policies, incidentally, which he regards as very sincerely undertaken, although for unaccountable reasons they sort of went wrong. His conclusion is the following. He says, the United States kept to very limited controlled forms of democratic change because of the deep fear of populist-based change in Latin America, with all of its implications for upsetting established economic and political orders and heading off in leftist directions. The underlying objective, he said, has been to maintain the basic order of what are quite undemocratic societies. The U.S. therefore seeks only limited top-down forms of democratic change that do not risk upsetting traditional structures of power with which the United States has long been allied. But he assures us the United States does that with great sincerity. The principles, again, are to maintain, democracy means maintaining in power the established economic political order, the traditional structures of power with which the United States is allied, and blocking any populist alternative, any alternative based on popular engagement in the political system. Well, he happens to be speaking of the Reagan-Bush years, but exactly the same goes through all the way back, and absolutely nothing has changed today. That's a fair encapsulation of the concept of democracy with regard to the South, with regard to our domains in the hemisphere, and with regard to the United States as well. People in Latin America and the Caribbean shouldn't feel that they're being discriminated against. The very same attitude is held towards democracy in the United States, and indeed always has been. We actually just saw a pretty dramatic example of that right here only a few weeks ago in the course of the NAFTA debate, which was quite revealing if you look at it closely. Ordinarily, political leaders and the intellectuals and commentators in the press and so on, ordinarily they try to conceal their intense class loyalties and try to make it look as if they're kind of above the fray and so on. But sometimes, when things are really dangerous, that pose gets hard to maintain, and this issue was just too important, so all pretenses were put aside. In the weeks leading up to the congressional vote, the press and the journals reached a level of near hysteria, and it was particularly revealing to see the outrage expressed over the efforts of working people to try to approach their congressional representatives. Just a couple of days before the campaign, President Clinton, denounced what he called the real roughshod, muscle-bound tactics of organized labor, the raw muscle, the naked pressure, as labor resorted to pleading based on friendship and threatening based on money and work in the campaign as they approached their elected representatives. Never would you find a corporate lobbyist sinking that low. At the sort of far left of discussion, the outer extremes, Anthony Lewis in the New York Times berated the backward, unenlightened labor movement and the crude, threatening tactics that it employed as it approached its elected representatives to express its views on what they might do. Leading newspapers like the Washington Post and the New York Times ran editorials in the Times in which they, Post as well, in which the Times had in its editorial listed in a little box the day before the vote congressional representatives in the New York area who had announced they were going to vote against NAFTA. And next to each representative's name, it listed the contributions that he had received from the labor movement. And the Times said this is an unsettling correlation. It raises ominous questions about whether representatives are really voting their conscience or are being intimidated by the raw muscle of the labor movement before which the business community is trembling in utter fear and impotence. As a number of the aggrieved representatives later pointed out, the Times had not run an editorial listing corporate contributions to representatives, nor for that matter had it run an editorial with a box in it listing the attitude of Times advertisers towards NAFTA and asking whether that raised ominous questions, unsettling questions about the Times editorial position. But it's kind of, these criticisms of the press, I should say, are sort of unfair. It's quite appropriate for the press not to comment on the fact, which of course they knew, that corporate contributions and corporate lobbying vastly exceeded anything that labor could possibly do. In fact, interestingly, the Times discussed that in a front page article in which they compared the corporate lobbying with the marginal labor lobbying. That article appeared, however, the day after the vote. It was kind of mysteriously delayed, but it was accurate. However, it's unfair to blame journalists for not pointing this out and for concentrating on these threatening, crude efforts of labor to try to enter the political arena. The reason is that a professional journalist is not supposed to describe things that are taken for granted. So you don't read an article in, say, tomorrow's newspaper saying the sun came up this morning. And it's taken for granted. It's assumed that Congress is supposed to simply respond to the orders that it gets from the business community, and that extensive corporate lobbying is supposed to go on to make sure people vote the right way. And since that's about as trivial as the fact that the sun rose, there is really no need to report it. What you have to report, what is objectionable, is if somebody else tries to get into the act who doesn't belong there, namely the population. If working people in the United States try to put their 2 cents in, then the constitutional system is threatened and democracy is about to collapse, and we have to have near hysteria and rant about the crude threatening tactics and the raw muscle and so on. That's all of this, you really have to read through it closely to get the feel, but what it illustrates is the fact that democracy is not simply disliked across the spectrum, but it's hated with real passion. Now, usually the passion doesn't show up because there's no fear that there might be an exercise of democracy. But when there's any fear of it, everything comes out very clearly and quickly. In Haiti, it comes out by supporting military coups. Here it comes out in other ways, but the logic's about the same. And in fact, the central significance of NAFTA, as indeed of the forthcoming GATT, probable settlement, is that they are major contributions to undermining democratic institutions. That's part of the reason why they are so passionately supported. What they do is vest even greater power in totalitarian institutions, transnational corporations, international investment, financial institutions, and so on, and the governmental institutions that they have developed to express their interests, all of which operate completely in secret, are completely unaccountable to the public through any parliamentary institutions, and have enormous and increasing influence in international and indeed the domestic economy, and in fact over every aspect of life. So one can readily understand the enthusiasm for them and the hysteria over the attempt of working people to spoil the party. Well, what happened in Haiti is only a special case of attitudes that are far more generally held. Now, this fear and hatred of democracy is quite uniform. It goes back for centuries. Let me just illustrate with the Haitian case Let's take the Woodrow Wilson administration, the leading progressive administration, which invaded and occupied Haiti and the Dominican Republic right during the First World War, contributing massively in both cases to their present delightful state. It was assumed by the Wilson liberals that both Haiti and the Dominican Republic had to be ruled by the United States. This was in accordance with Wilson's fabled principle of self-determination, but there was a difference in the way the two had to be ruled. The difference was explained by Wilson's Secretary of State, Robert Lansing. He pointed out that the Dominicans, while not advanced enough for genuine self-government, yet have a preponderance of white-blooded culture. The Haitians, on the other hand, are Negro for the most part, and barring a few educated politicians, are almost in a state of savagery and complete ignorance. So they must be completely ruled by the American occupiers, he said, for a long period of time, in fact, maybe forever, because the African race are devoid of any capacity for political organization and lack the genius for government. Unquestionably, they have an inherent tendency to revert to savagery and to cast aside the shackles of civilization, which are irksome to their physical nature, a fact which makes the Negro problem practically unsolvable in the United States. Well, that was Woodrow Wilson's progressive administration. And if you think that things have changed much today, you just haven't been reading very closely. So after the coup and the slaughter that followed, a high Bush administration official explained to the the Washington Post this was, that the problem is not U.S. policy, it's just that Haiti is Haiti, and that's the way Haitians behave. The Bush administration, the Reagan administration ambassador after the massacre that was mentioned in November 1987, he was approached by America's Watch to ask how come Reagan administration is still supporting all these atrocities. He just said, look, there's nothing we can do about it. Violence is part of their culture. Lawrence Harrison, in an article, who was USAID director, in an article in the Atlantic Monthly recently said there's absolutely nothing that anybody can do about this. They just have the wrong culture. Their whole culture has to change. The Haitians, as the press have been telling us, are just contentious by nature. They can't get together and do anything, can't do anything about it. That's shown, for example, by their vote in the 1990 election, and on and on. Actually, I again ought to make clear that although the Haitians with their Negro blood are particularly incapable of self-government, and the Dominicans, the Spics as they were called, only slightly above them, they're not that much worse than the rest of the human species, and that has to be borne in mind once again. So the Wilson, going back to the Wilson administration again, the same Secretary of State, Wilson's Secretary of State, explained the fear of Bolshevism in these terms. He said the problem of Bolshevism, this is right after the Bolshevik Revolution now, is that it would leave the ignorant and incapable mass of humanity dominant in the earth. The Bolsheviks were appealing to the proletariat of all countries, to the ignorant and mentally deficient, who by their numbers are urged to become masters. And obviously we can't have any of that. That explains why, from a spectrum from, say, Anthony Lewis over to the extreme right, there's absolute terror at the idea of working people lobbying their representatives. After all, we don't want the ignorant and mentally deficient, by virtue of their numbers, to become the masters. In other words, democracy is out of the question for such simple reasons as these. This was the view held by progressive Wilsonian intellectuals, people like Walter Lippmann, who described the general public, apart from a small group which he, of course, was part of, the general public as ignorant and meddlesome outsiders, whose role in a democratic system is to be spectators and not participants. Naturally, there is utter hysteria when the ignorant and meddlesome outsiders try to get into the act and to influence policy. I should say that this is a virtually universal attitude in the intellectual community, running across the board and going way back for hundreds of years. I've documented a lot of this if you're interested. Well, coming back to Haiti, the problem was not just Aristide, but his supporters. Not just ignorant and meddlesome outsiders, but even worse, as the Wilson administration recognized. As to what had happened during the few months when these, when this ignorant and capable mass of humanity was in control of things, there are essentially two versions. One version is given, for example, by America's Watch, which, as I say, has monitored the situation quite closely. America's Watch described the Haitian society as involving I'm quoting, a remarkably advanced array of popular organizations, the Lavalas movement, that gave the large majority of the population a considerable voice in local affairs and national politics in a diverse and vibrant civil society. The society which, in fact, the military thugs are demolishing while the U.S. Watches quietly, so that even if Aristide is permitted to return, America's Watch continues, he would have difficulty in transforming his personal popularity into the organized support needed to exercise civilian authority, which is indeed exactly the point of the Bush-Clinton policy. Notice, incidentally, that a description of that sort could not possibly be given of the United States, of American society. No one would describe the United States as having a remarkably advanced array of popular organizations that give the large majority of the population a considerable voice in local and national affairs in a diverse and vibrant civil society that's eons away from anything we have, which does perhaps raise a few questions about who ought to be teaching whom some lessons about democracy. But I'll put that aside because, after all, that's only one version of what happened. There's also a kind of an official version for which we turn, as usual, to the New York Times. It has its correspondent, Howard French, describing the same phenomena, describes Aristide as an insular and menacing leader who governed with the aid of fear, leaning heavily on Lavalas, an unstructured movement of affluent idealists and long-exiled leftists, whose model was China's Cultural Revolution, like you, for example. Aristide's power hunger, he said, led to troubles with civil society, which was frightened by his strident statements blaming the wealthier classes for the poverty of the masses. How outrageous can you get? The politically active people in Haiti feared the political and class-based violence that Aristide endorsed. He was seen by the politically active people in Haiti and in Washington as an inflexible and vindictive crusader who called for justice and punishment for the mass murderers, lining up with America's Watch and Amnesty International. Well, that's another view of the same picture. So from this point of view, the sort of official point of view, civil society in Haiti doesn't refer to the diverse and vibrant civil society that gave the people a voice in national and local affairs. Rather, civil society is the rich elites, the traditional rulers. And the politically active people are not the people who are politically active. That is, not the popular movements and their representative. Rather, the politically active people are the old rulers. And class-based violence does not refer to the traditional and, in fact, current violence exercised by the United States and its allies in the military and the wealthy Haitian community. Rather, class-based violence is the call of the general population for an end to their misery and oppression. That's class-based violence. And the idea that the wealthy classes might be responsible for the poverty of the masses is too ludicrous even to discuss, perhaps even maybe only barely outweighed in absurdity by the idea that the United States might have something to do with this instead of the degenerate and probably genetically based Haitian culture. I don't want to suggest that Howard French and the New York Times are alone. Rather, this is a rather standard depiction of the offered by the political and intellectual elite and their media, and it's not different from the past, as even these few comments illustrate. Well, let me turn to the U.S. role, now with a little more historical depth. The United States actually has a long history in connection with Haiti, and it's worth looking at. It's perfectly true, as Decimus said, that Haiti sent military aid to help the United States in its own war of independence against the British, and that gesture was quickly reciprocated. In 1791, there was a slave revolt in Haiti, which naturally France moved rapidly to put down, helped in this case by an international army. The West in general didn't want to see this heresy get anywhere, so there were troops from Britain and the continent and so on. The newly liberated government here also sent troops as well as military aid to try to repress what would be the first free country in the hemisphere. Remember, the United States was 20% slave, and the native population was in the process of being exterminated, as the founding fathers put it. But the idea that there might be a free country, that was totally unacceptable, in particular because of the demonstration effect that it might have elsewhere in the United States and in other countries. Well, when the slave revolt nevertheless succeeded, and Haiti won its freedom in 1804, it was kept under bitter attack by the civilized world. 1825, France, the former colonial power, finally relented, but only after Haiti agreed to pay France huge indemnities to make up for the fact that it had liberated itself from French rule. The United States, other European countries finally went along and recognized Haiti, but not the United States. The United States was the last major power to recognize Haiti, being particularly indignant over the liberation of a country by freed slaves. It wasn't until 1862, in the middle of the Civil War, that the United States finally recognized Haiti. There were two reasons. One was that Haiti was needed at that time by the Lincoln administration as a base for its war, for the Union's war in the South. And secondly, it was hoped the United States then, 1862, was going to free its own slaves, and it was hoped that Haiti, along with Liberia, which was recognized in the same year, would be a place to which they could be expelled, so that the country could meet Thomas Jefferson's ideal of being a country without blot or mixture, as Jefferson put it. That is, exterminating the native population and getting rid of the slave population, so we would then be a country without blot or mixture. Well, that was 1862. After that, Haiti became a kind of a plaything of the European imperial powers in the United States. Given the distribution of power, the United States finally essentially took over. In 1915, Wilson's Marines invaded Haiti. They were unbelievably racist. I mean, the comments that I quoted from the administration are the soft side of the spectrum. The Marine invasion was, the Marines themselves had just come fresh from massive atrocities in the Philippines, where they had slaughtered hundreds of thousands of Filipinos. They were old Indian fighters whose tradition was exterminating the natives at home. This, incidentally, is a tradition that runs right up to the present. It was right through the Vietnam War, for example, and then it was fresh. It was the same people, actually. The Marine invasion slaughtered thousands of people. It reinstituted virtual slavery. It destroyed the constitutional system. The Haitians, as Lansing said, were extremely backward, and they refused to understand the progressive nature of the Constitution that the occupying American forces had written for them. Its basic element was a requirement that Haiti agree to have Americans purchase Haitian lands, buy up Haiti and turn it into American plantation, and they didn't understand why they should do that. So for that reason, the Haitian National Assembly was disbanded, by genuine Marine Corps methods, as Major Smedley Butler, the Marine commander in charge, later described it. They were disbanded. Under Marine rule, a new election took place in which 5% of the population participated, and the new Constitution won a 99.98% positive vote, so everybody was happy, and that enabled the United States American businesses to buy up Haitian lands and turn it into an American plantation. One of the major effects of the 19-year Marine occupation, apart from exacerbating class differences and greatly intensifying the already existing racism within Haiti, was to leave a National Guard, an army, which was designed to fight against the population and control them. It's the same army that's killing and murdering today. This was all duplicated in the Dominican Republic next door, only a little less viciously, because after all, the Haitians didn't have any white blood, and therefore they were, worse off. That's roughly the picture of the two invasions. It left the murderous Trujillo regime in the Dominican Republic, supported by the United States, right up till he got out of hand around 1960, and after a few years, it led to the Duvalier dictatorship in Haiti. Duvalier was a mass murderer and a torturer who was not particularly liked in the United States because he was a bit too independent, wrong kind of mass murderer. Though, despite this defect, John F. Kennedy gave him aid for the Duvalier International Airport and military aid. That was part of the general Kennedy commitment to extend the power of the security forces throughout Latin America, a crucial element of Kennedy's policy, which had lethal effects. In the case of Haiti, the gifts were in return for lining up in Kennedy's manic anti-Castro crusade. When Duvalier's son, baby doc, Jean-Claude, took over in 1971, the relations with the United States became extremely cordial, and Haiti quickly joined Brazil and Somoza's Nicaragua, and a year or two later, Chile after the coup, and others, as what were called darlings of the business community. USAID and the World Bank outlined a policy which they said was going to turn Haiti into the Taiwan of the Caribbean. It was going to be they laid out an economic program based primarily on assembly plants, where you could get workers for 14 cents an hour, mainly women who, as elsewhere, considered more docile and easily repressed and replaceable. You weren't troubled by any unions. There was ample terror. There was a greatly expanding workforce because of another aspect of the USAID World Bank program, namely to terminate or undercut farming for local consumption. About 30% of Haitian lands were turned into agro-export. The World Bank in 1985 expanded the program, urged that Haiti cut back on irrelevancies like social objectives, meaning spending for education, health, and so on, and cut back consumption. What it should do is emphasize high-profit private projects, which would, of course, ultimately benefit everyone somewhere off in the future, around the time that the Messiah shows up, perhaps. Short of the Messiah, what happened was the usual effects in such programs, incidentally worldwide. There, by now, over 75 of them have been applied in 75 different countries have been subjected to them, essentially always with the same results. Profits for foreign investors, in this case U.S. manufacturers, for the Haitian rich who were associated with them. Wages dropped over 50% in the 1980s. This is what is known as an economic miracle. Haiti remained Haiti, not Taiwan. Incidentally, there are no Taiwans in the U.S. sphere or in the sphere of World Bank policies. There are plenty of countries in the U.S. sphere and in the sphere of World Bank policies that have been subjected to these programs, as I say, over 75 of them. In fact, there's one very striking one. which has received more kind tutelage than almost any other, namely the Philippines. It happens to be pretty striking in that it's in the highest growth area of the world, and in that area of the world, it is the one complete basket case, and also the one example that has been subjected to U.S. tutelage and World Bank policies. All of this picture does raise a few questions, or might, in the minds of some development economist, respectable development economist or American intellectual, but I leave it to you as a project after finals end to try to find somebody who has been struck by these strange coincidences. Putting that aside, the U.S. continued to support the Duvalier regime right through the terror and the torture and the repression and everything else with considerable enthusiasm, in fact, great enthusiasm. This went on right to the very end when Duvalier could no longer be sustained and was overthrown by a popular uprising. A military government took over. The U.S. aid remained lavish as the new government killed more people in its first year than Duvalier had done in 15 years. Things continued pretty much on course until December 1990, when a mistake was made. An election was allowed, a free election, with the consequences I've already mentioned. Well, interestingly, the World Bank and the Inter-American Development Bank broke with the U.S. government on Aristide's few months in power. They were quite supportive and quite impressed. They were impressed by the highly successful fiscal and economic policies, the increased taxation, the cutting back of bureaucratic waste, which was enormous, and corruption, and the laying of the basis for real development with serious social programs. The Aristide government gained quite surprising amounts of international aid and support outside the United States, and indeed that aid and support was one of the reasons for the hostility of the United States to the government, because these are supposed to be U.S. colonies. They're not supposed to be supported or connected with others. Washington was strongly opposed from the beginning. U.S. aid had instantly, as soon as the Aristide government came in, it cut off all investment support. It called for a dialogue of the government with business. It had never called for a dialogue of any government with labor or with peasants. As far as I'm aware, you can correct me if I'm wrong, U.S. aid never gave a penny to the peasant movement. I don't know if they did. As far as I'm aware, they never gave 1 cent to it. And as Trouillot said in the comments that Decima quoted, the peasants are Haiti. They never got anything. The U.S. aid intervened to oppose, including Lawrence Harrison, the director of the mission, to oppose Aristide's effort to raise the minimum wage to a princely 37 cents an hour. The U.S. aid position was that this would interfere with the job enhancement programs, which were based on high repression and low wages. NAFTA, again, comes to mind. There was a sudden concern when Aristide took office with weakening executive power. The NED, the National Endowment for Democracy, moved in, bipartisan democracy enhancement operation, to support anti-Aristide organizations throughout the country. Anti-Aristide unions, political organizations, and so on. Interestingly, all of those organizations not only survived the coup while everything else was destroyed, but in fact moved right into power after the coup, which suggests something. There was also a sudden concern for human rights after Aristide came in for the first time, which was pretty striking because the human rights climate dramatically improved. In fact, Amnesty International was able to find 26 cases of abuses, most of them attributable to the army, and as far as I know, none attributed to the government during those months. Immediately after the coup, the government of the coup regime, the General Cedras, the chief of staff who took over, presented to the press a thick dossier, a 200-page dossier of alleged human rights abuses committed by the Aristide government. According to journalists in Haiti, I'm privately informed by a very respectable and a very good foreign journalist, Canadian journalist, embassy in Haiti called in top journalists from the Washington Post and the New York Times and others to have a look at that dossier that the government, that the new government, the coup regime, was presenting, having been prepared perhaps with a little help from their friends. The press, at this point, remember, thousands of people were being slaughtered in the streets, and the press responded, namely by focusing attention on alleged human rights abuses under the Aristide government. I saw some of you had some material in hand, and I imagine that the studies of the Boston Media Group were distributed outside. If not, pick it up. But in fact, what they show is that, say in the New York Times, after the coup, more than 50% of the press, of the media coverage in the Times, other papers were not all that different, more than 50% of coverage on human rights abuses concentrated on a fraction of 1% of the abuses, namely the handful that could be attributed to Aristide supporters. This is while thousands of people were being killed. Well, that's pretty standard. The hostility to Aristide I've already reviewed. Within a few months, Bush had effectively ended the embargo, or as the New York Times put it, had fine-tuned the embargo to allow American corporations and American assembly plants to keep functioning in violation of it. That was the fine-tuning, and they moved on to the solution that I outlined. Aristide is to return because we love democracy so much, but of course he's to be a figurehead. Clinton took over following the same policies. Last summer, Aristide agreed in the Governor's Island Accord to go along with what amounts to this policy, replaced his prime minister by Robert Malval, who was a friend and a courageous and honorable man, but happens to be opposed to Aristide's reforms, and as the press was pleased to say, and approved by the business community. Then comes pressure from the United States, continuing up until the present, to do what's called broadening the government. We're very democratic, and we like to see much broader governments. Broadening the government does not mean allowing anyone in from the popular movements who represent the overwhelming mass of the population. It means letting in what are called moderate businessmen. That means the kind who don't think you ought to just slaughter the population. They think you ought to keep them around so they can work in assembly plants for 14 cents a day. And we also ought to broaden the government further, being democratic, to include even elements to the far right, to the, the guys with the blood dripping off their hands. And then we will have the traditional structures of power, and we'll have satisfied the conditions of democracy as described by the Reaganite insider who was outlining the sincerity of our policies in the words that I quoted. Meanwhile, another aspect of this is that the United States is going to train and civilize the security forces so that they won't do nasty things like General Cedras or the Chief of Police Michel Francois, both of whom incidentally were trained in Fort Benning, Georgia, as was most of the Haitian High Command, and according to church sources, Haitian and American church sources, high Haitian officers were seen in Fort Benning, Georgia, as recently as this October, that is 2 months ago. I've already described what happened a bit with the narco-trafficking and so on. I should say that no disciplined intellectual that I've found seems to see anything odd about the idea that the United States should now move in. The same people who trained them in the first place should now move in to train them so they don't do the things that they did after having received the benefits of U.S. training. Again, maybe there's some slight problem there, but nobody seems to see it. Well, the effects are that the popular organizations are indeed being decimated. The hope is, I don't know whether this can succeed, that a Duvalier-style system can be reinstated, but preferably with formal elections, as indeed has happened in the Dominican Republic. Yeah, I'm stopping. I'll just end by switching to another country, El Salvador, which is fair enough. After all, it's the same things happening because there's the same source to them. In 1989, the rector of the Jesuit University in El Salvador, Ignacio Echeverria, wrote that with all of its many faults, the Cuban model has achieved the best satisfaction of basic needs in all Latin America in a relatively short time, while Latin America's actual situation points out the capitalist system's intrinsic malice and the ideological falsehood of the semblance of democracy that accompanies, legitimates, and cloaks it. Well, fortunately, his brains were blown out a few days later by the Atlacatl Brigade, which was fresh from U.S. training, as is indeed the standard pattern. He was one of the 6 Jesuit intellectuals murdered in November 1989. The people who really murdered him were those who feigned indignation here, but make sure that no one will ever hear a word he had to say, including these. And the surest way to rid ourselves of a troublesome priest is that way. The fate of Aristide reveals another way. Ayer Correa was, of course, describing us, as we will discover if we choose to look into the mirror. Furthermore, the pattern is systematic, it is deeply rooted, it's going to continue in Haiti and elsewhere as long as we allow it to.
I want to invite you to please remain, please remain, please remain. Don't leave if you can. If you have to, the revolution excuses you. I want to thank both of our speakers, Chavannes Jean Baptist, who could only be sort of cut off while he was speaking by his brother. vesves Jean Baptist, but Chavannes will take questions shortly. I also want to thank very much Noam Chomsky, and he also will take questions. As Professor Chomsky has said, this system of disempowering the people and the leadership of transformational movements in the hemisphere is old, it's long. In my own reading, I say have a similar analysis. In fact, that the advent of 1917 and 1945, those are new periods in US foreign policy. For those of us in the hemisphere who do our homework, we know that long before communism, there was the determination to keep back the black people, the dark races, the people of color, whose lands and wealth has always been seen, you know, as the necessary inputs for the industrialization of the North. So I think we have to be very grateful for the analysis and information that we have received this evening, and it is important for us to act on it. I will come to that because, as I said before, some of us are acting. We've gone to Haiti, and I would like to share with you some of our findings regarding US policy in Haiti in October of 1993. First, before you leave, you have already paid $5 to come in. It's not a fee, it's a contribution. And I have to say, sisters and brothers, it's a small one. There are probably 300-400 of us, is that correct? Maybe I'm overestimating. So if we say on the conservative side, since we are dealing with conservatives, 300 persons, and you each give $5, that would be $1,500, but we didn't each give $5, and more than that, we can each give more than $5. I want to ask for an additional contribution. Yeah, I'm sorry to remind you of the Black Baptist preachers, you know, but I do want to ask for an additional contribution. And I want to ask you to give in the following order. Where are the collectors? Basley? There are people here with buckets waiting, always somebody waiting to take your money. But this time, this person who will take your money, let me tell you where it will go. If you give $50 more, this will be a loan to start a small business for a Haitian woman who is a member of MPP. I met with some of these women in October, And it is the two things, their determination and their dignity is very clear, as well as their need. $50 to assist a small woman who now has, a small business entrepreneur, who now is suffering from unemployment or the withdrawal of the development programs in the rural area. We'll take checks, make them out to MPP EDF, which is Educational Development Fund. MPP EDF, if you have a checkbook. Anybody can give us $50? Can 2 neighbors give us $50? Can 3 roommates give us $50? Can a professor give us $50? Okay, I pledge $50. Thank you. We have 2 $50 pledges. 3 $50 pledges. Thank you all very much. $30 can support our militants in hiding for a month. When I was in Haiti in October, we met with a group of 9 who were representing 14 organizations. They were all in hiding. And they remember the embargo was on, there's very little gasoline, very little security. Bus drivers were being beaten up for driving around foreigners, and yet they came and had to go back to hiding. $30 will support such a person for a month. $30 US to support somebody for a month. $20 can buy corn and bean seeds for 2 families. $20. $20, I see one $20 waving around here. I see 2, thank you. 3, 4, 5. Maybe 6 at 20. Thank you very much. It means that you buy less Christmas wrapping paper, which destroys the environment less. Use newspapers for wrapping Christmas presents. They're already there. I want $10. I want $10 to buy corn. How many? I see 1 $10 bill, 2, 3, 3 10s. This is not Gottlieb's. 4. We are not selling the Greek vases that are selling for $3 million. 4 $10 for corn. And I want $5. Look, listen to our priorities now. I want $5 to help MPP continue to publish its written materials. Again, we met with 2 fabulous journalists. Some of them have been in the area, Bobby Duval and Jane, who are familiar to you here in Cambridge. We met with them in Port-au-Prince 2 months ago. Haitian organizations are continuing to document the situation, to put out newspaper accounts under very repressive conditions. They send it up to the Haitian Communication Project Office in Boston. It's translated and it is sent out to you free. $5 will continue that work. Now, I will take $5. Thank you. I see 1, 2, 3. And now we will take $1 bills. $1 bills. Any more $1 bills left? I pledge to look in my purse for $1 bills. Thank you very much. You've been great. I know we've got some money, and I can assure you it's going to organizations and individuals with faces. Chavannes spoke about the trees that they were planting. 2 of the leaders who came from MPP told us that they continue to do 2 projects. One is to plant trees, you know, and the other one is to help with the creolization pig project, despite the severe reduction in the funds. So you must know that while there is repression in Haiti, there is ongoing development work. It's an important point to take away from tonight's meeting, that the Haitian people themselves are continuing to do what they can, where they can, and they're calling on us for our support in that effort. What should U.S. policy be? I'm sure people are thinking about that. You read the New York Times article a month ago? It was actually an editorial. It said that there are two options, and only two options: to intervene, which the administration seems not inclined to do, or to abandon Haiti, which is the correct political thing to do so the president can face re-election with his hands full of victories. Okay, cannot win Haiti, don't bother with it. Intervene or abandon. I have another proposal, but first I'll take your questions.
Decima, what we'd like to do is set a microphone up here so that people can come up to this microphone, ask the questions, and it'll be on both radio and TV.
You heard the general. Please come with please come with your questions, comments, suggestions. Thanks to you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I wanted to address a question for Chavannes Jean Baptist. He spoke of the importance of solidarity from the American people with the struggle of Haiti. It seems to me that the most important thing that American people, particularly the American working class, can do is to struggle for a revolution right here in the United States against the imperialist powers who have kept Haiti under their boot all these years. And the advice of the Lavalas movement and Father Aristide has been for us to support a US-UN embargo, a blockade of Haiti, which won't solve anything except cause more suffering for the Haitian masses. It seems to me that it is imperative for us to make sure that this blockade does not occur, which not only threatens Haiti but threatens Cuba, and that the working class of the United States must unite with its Haitian brothers and sisters to overthrow not only the Cedras government, but the government, to get rid of the capitalist government of the United States. The Democrats and the Republicans are both the same in their oppression of the American working class and the Haitian working class.
Thank you.
And that is the perspective of the Spartacus League. Thank you.
Is this a comment or a question? It's a comment, says Mr. Jean-Baptiste. Thank you for your comment.
I have a question for Mr. Chomsky that I thought he did a good job of describing, sort of deconstructing what democracy enhancement has meant to date. But I'd like to know if he could propose what it might mean in the true sense of democracy enhancement. In other words, not what it has meant in the bad sense, but what it in the best sense of that phrase would mean.
Well, what would democracy be? Democracy means a society. There are a lot of different dimensions of democracy, but a society is or an institution is democratic to the extent that the public has a meaningful role in making decisions concerning their own affairs and in participating in implementing those decisions. And we have a lot of different kinds of affairs. Among our affairs are the places where we work and live, the communities where we work and live, the economic institutions that we're part of. And in every one of those respects, democracy enhancement would mean eliminating authoritarian and hierarchic structures, eliminating any form of absolute power, or for that matter, even hierarchic power, and placing it in the hands of the people who participate in those institutions. It would mean, for example, the one respect in which I agree with the former speaker is that democracy would mean eliminating any residue of the state capitalist system, which is deeply anti-democratic in its very nature. A business, a corporation, say, is about as an extreme a form of absolute rule as one can imagine. It's a totalitarian institution. Its very existence is anti-democratic. And when such institutions become transnational, they're not even under the limited control that a formal political democracy can impose on absolute institutions of power within it. And of course, that's the direction things are going. So workers' control in industry, popular control of other functioning institutions, local control in communities, and so on. These are all steps towards democracy. And incidentally, it goes well beyond that. There are lots of other structures of hierarchy and authority beyond these, in families, among men and women, and all sorts of others. And democracy, a search for democracy, means seeking those authoritarian structures, challenging them if they can't justify themselves, and they rarely can, overcoming them and making them free and giving people an opportunity to realize their own interests and concerns under their own control and solidarity with others. The point is that merely to comment on the preceding speaker, I don't disagree with anything you say in terms of ends, but if the people of Haiti have to wait until we succeed in creating a democracy here, they will long be dead. You know? Therefore, there are things that have to be done in the existing world to try to ameliorate their conditions, recognizing that we're operating within systems of violence and authority and destruction, but trying to modify them so that there are opportunities for people to survive and to work together for a better world in the future.
Yeah, I have a question for Noam. How important is the Cedrus-run drug trade to the U.S. ruling class, or is that just they got to let Cedrus and his people do it because Cedrus is the puppet? And in general, the drug trade throughout the other parts of the world that the U.S. controls, how important is the drug trade?
Well, you know, the masters of American society have an ambivalent attitude toward the drug trade. They don't really care about it that much one way or another. It does contribute to, say, profits of big banks, and it probably plays a role in controlling parts of the public. On the other hand, it's harmful to them. But as far as the Haitian role in the drug trade is concerned, I should say there's a good deal of misleading commentary going on now. With regard to the United States, if you consider the total flow of drugs into, let's assume that people are, let's consider just opposition to drugs. Suppose we're trying to get rid of drugs. As concerns the total flow of drugs into the United States, what's passing through Haiti is probably relatively small, you know, quite small. So when the DEA spokesman tells you, look, Haiti's a small player in the drug trade, technically that's correct. On the other hand, with regard to maintaining the military regime in Haiti in power, it's enormous. You know, the scale of what's required to maintain power in Haiti and what's required to make a big impact on the drug trade in the United States, those are different universes. And as far as there seems to be little doubt that one of the main sources of support, maybe the main one, of the army and the military in Haiti is in fact narco-trafficking. And the United States has an ambivalent attitude toward this. The United States, the goal of U.S. policy is not to have Haiti run by thugs and gangsters from the military and the police. The goal is to have it run by those who are called moderate business people, in the sense that I described. That is, those who want to turn Haiti into an export platform and an agro-export source for U.S.-based corporations. And those are not the guys who are running the military and the police. In fact, by now they have edged out elements of the traditional ruling groups. There's now opposition to the military inside Haiti on the part of the traditional rulers, the guys in the gold-plated Cadillacs, who see that their own power is being taken away by these new military thugs who are not acting in the interest of the United States. And you see a reflection of that conflict in U.S. policy. So when you're listening to Jesse Helms and probably Elliott Abrams, you may well be hearing people who are speaking for the guys with the torturers and the killers. On the other hand, when you hear the Clinton administration, you're hearing people who do not any longer speak for the torturers and the killers because they're killing the wrong people and stealing from the wrong people, but rather for the traditional bourgeoisie who they'd like to see in power. And there's a spectrum of, there's a certain confusion, if you like, or a complexity in American policy to finesse the solution that they're trying to achieve, namely restore traditional power and use the military and the police as an agency to decimate the popular organizations and bring back, maybe if necessary, Aristide as a figurehead. To put all that together is not so simple. And I think things have gotten out of hand in Haiti. They would like to displace the military and the police and restore power to its traditional sources, you know, the progressive business community as they think about them. And that would in fact mean suppressing the narco-trafficking, but the trouble is there's no way of doing that without eliminating the force that's destroying the popular organization. And I think that's the complexity of the tactical problem that the Clinton administration is now facing.
Hi, this is to anybody who wants to answer it. I read something the other day about the Vatican and their disapproval of Mr. Aristide and Father Aristide, and he, I think, in turn may renounce his status as a priest or whatever. I was just interested in what seemed like is the Vatican's, we'll say, lack of interest in democracy in Haiti, or however you want to phrase it. I just wonder what their motives are, and if it's bad or worse, and why they would prefer such a thing.
Thank you. She wants to know the role of the Vatican, the real attitudes of the Vatican towards the Aristide comment. Anyone can answer it. Let me answer it very quickly for you, because I was privileged to have an excellent analysis by a theologian in hiding in Haiti, a Belgian priest, who told us that as you know, in Haiti there are two churches in the Catholic Church. There's the hierarchy and sort of establishment church, and then there is the popular church, the L'Église, and the People's Church. And it is widely believed that, with the exception of one of the bishops of Haiti, the establishment church either participated or was silent about the overthrow of President Aristide. So I think it's well known that there is a rift there. This week, the Prime Minister Malval is in the Vatican with former Mayor Flynn, encouraging the Vatican to play a constructive role. And I think the Aristide's government welcome all constructive participants, and hoping that the Vatican will fall on the side of the people, because hitherto it hasn't done that. Definitely hasn't done that. So if you're close to the church, you might want to call your parish priest or call the archbishop of this area and urge them to be more supportive of the Haitian people and not of the Haitian ruling elites. Next, young man.
Thanks for your lecture, Professor Chomsky. It was very witty and interesting. I'd like to know that if tomorrow, say, you got Anthony Lake's job as National Security Advisor, which I'm sure is a very likely circumstance, what would be your actual top 3 policy recommendations to President Clinton? What would you actually ask him to do about Haiti tomorrow?
Tomorrow? That's assuming that the United States remains as it is, with its power structure and its institutions as they are. That being the case, I would not want to see the United States get directly involved in Haiti, because any way it's going to get directly involved will be extremely harmful because of the interest to which it's responding. However, I think that there are a number of things short of that could be done. One is the United States, look, without being an expert on military affairs, which I am not, I am completely convinced that the U.S. could act not only to intercept sailboats carrying refugees, but to intercept boats carrying narcotics in and out. And I think that the U.S. Air Force doubtless has the capacity to block planes flying in and out of Haiti transporting drugs. And even a threat to do that would very likely undermine and terminate the military efforts. Secondly, the military and the police in Haiti are virtually agencies of the U.S. security forces. They were trained by U.S. trainers. They respond to what they're told by U.S. generals. They get their arms, actually they don't get American arms, they apparently get mostly Israeli arms, but like Uzis and Galils and so on, but that means through U.S. connections. The U.S. has overwhelming power in this region. It's interesting that people in the coup government itself have been saying all along that, as they put it, a phone call from the Pentagon would send the soldiers back to their barracks. Okay, that's an exaggeration. I don't think a phone call from the Pentagon would do it, but it's symbolic. It could be done. If the Clinton administration decided that it was going to be willing to accept a popular government based on the functioning, the still functioning popular organizations, and to call off the killers, I think it could do that quite readily by things like, for example, terminating the drug trade, or at least threatening to do so, and calling off the dogs. Beyond that, I think they should simply respond to the requests of the legitimate government of Haiti, which, after all, has its proposals. They have called for a complete commercial blockade, excluding humanitarian aid. They have called for ending flights, commercial flights. They've called for an actual closing off of the assets of the coup leaders. Now, the United States claims that we can't do that because they've moved it all to Europe. Big joke. Europe is going to stand up and interfere with us if we tell them we really want to get rid of this government in Haiti. That's another laugh that you can try on for size. If the Dutch were shipping oil into Haiti through Aruba to block the embargo, it was because the United States told them we don't care. And the same is true of the three oil companies. If the United States doesn't want them to follow that highly intimidating order from the Haitian court, it'll simply call them up in New York and say, hey, we don't want you to do that, and that'll terminate that. There are plenty of things like this that can be done immediately, which would probably provide enough of a signal to call these guys off and tell them that their bread is buttered on the other side. And those are the actions that I would suggest. The idea of a U.S. invasion force going in, I think, is very improper. This same Belgian priest, I presume it's the same one who Decima mentioned, I also met he's one of these cultural revolution, Chinese cultural revolution fanatics who's in hiding in a church in Haiti. Different one? Yeah, okay, sorry. He, like everyone else I met there, at least when I was there, is deeply concerned about the possibility of an American intervention. Here it's all, we have this picture, well, the Marines go in and they restore order, but they've actually had some experience, and they haven't forgotten what the Marine occupation was and what it left them with. And there are plenty of other people in the world who have experience. A Marine intervention is the last thing that's needed. I think you could make a case for some sort of an international peacekeeping force, but keeping to groups that don't have the kind of commitments and goals that the big powers do. However, even that, I think, is dubious, because I think that steps far short of it could probably return things.
When a number of women in this city organized the Women of Color tribute to Audre Lorde, it was as crowded as it is tonight. Audre Lorde, who was a very activist, political, feminist author, who very proudly, let me say, hailed from Grenada, and completed her intellectual and political work in the United States on behalf of women, on behalf of all discriminated sectors, has died about a year now. And I feel her spirit and the spirit of that organizing group of women as we meet here again. My name is Decima Williams, and I am very honored to work in the popular support movement for the Haitian Revolution. I serve as co-chair of the New England Observers Delegation to Haiti, which is a group of about 30 of us. We came together 3 months ago, essentially to be present and to give support to the restoration of President Aristide, actually to give life to what I call Aristoration, the restoration of Aristide and democracy to Haiti simultaneously. And in our Aristoration work, what we have done, I imagine we are doing 3 basic things. One is to go to Haiti and be witnesses there with the Haitian population, and in particular with the pro-democracy movement. Our first such mission was in the 30th of October. We were there for 6 days, and we have issued a report for those of you who may want to hear and to read for yourselves. Our 20-page report is available. I think there may be copies here, and I'll be happy to tell you about it afterwards. Our second mission is leaving on Wednesday, another group. Our first group was 16 persons. We will now have a mission of 10 persons who will go on the 15th, and this group is going to be there for the 16th of December, which was the date in 1990 that President Aristide was elected. From a field of 11 candidates, he garnered a majority of 67% of the vote. Our delegation will be there for 4 days, the 15th to the 19th, and we will again report when we come back. Let me announce that our third delegation will go in early February. The 7th of February is the day on which President Aristide was inaugurated. And if any of you have seen Ellen Wolpert's slideshow, you will see what a festive occasion it was. So our third group will leave probably around the 5th or 6th to be there for the 7th of February. I'm particularly excited about that because it is the day of Grenada's national independence. I come from Grenada. And I remember the 7th of February 1986 in the streets of Washington how we danced when Jean-Claude Duvalier was lifted by a miraculous hand, shall we say, from Haiti. So that's what our observer delegation has been doing in the main.
I'm a member of the Alternative News Collective, which is the student group at MIT that puts out the Thistle. We're proud to be able to co-sponsor this important discussion of United States foreign policy and Haiti by Chavannes Jean Baptist and Professor Noam Chomsky. Before we begin, though, I'd like to say a few words about the importance we place upon maintaining MIT's traditional role as a location for important discussions like this. Until recently, we at the Thistle have had no problem reserving rooms for talks by Noam Chomsky and others on important political issues such as this. Over the past 4 months, however, MIT's procedures on reserving rooms for student groups have changed. In order for the schedules office to reserve a room for us now, we must fill out the following form in triplicate and get signatures on it from Susan Allen, a staff member at the dean's office, Sergeant G.T. Eldred of the campus police, and the accountant for student groups. The amount of time we spend, that's right. The amount of time we spend on administrative details for reserving rooms such as this has risen from a few minutes to literally a few hours. An event that's likely to involve over 100 people or have any transaction of cash requires an MIT security officer. If it's after business hours, that security officer has to be hired for a minimum of 4 hours at $20 an hour. That's right. So the money that you've given to help this political cause, about $80 of it is going to the nice security officer outside and his family. The sound system, if it's required, requires hiring MIT personnel as well, minimum of 4 hours, and renting the equipment. That would have cost over $100 for this event. Thankfully, Charlie Welch, who's sitting right there with CASA, has agreed to help us out on this. So, as I see it, there's 2 possible reasons that the rules have changed. Either someone at MIT has decided that the Institute no longer supports open discussion by the Cambridge community of important political issues, or someone is misapplying the Institute's policies in this regard. In either case, the policymakers at MIT should be aware of the support for free and open discussion on its campus. To that end, I ask you to call Susan Allen, whose phone number you should have, and to write Art Smith and Charles Vest to let them know how you feel about this matter. Their numbers and addresses are being passed through the hall. I ask you also to sign the petition that's being circulated for that purpose. Anyway, thank you for your patience, and thanks for your support.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming. The last time I was in this very auditorium was, I imagine, 2 years ago.
Fait men ni bouche ni yeux paysans yo et pendant environ 30 ans.
The Duvalier dictatorship, with the Macoute system established by this dictatorship in Haiti, succeeded in shutting the mouth and the eyes of the peasantry.
Et cependant, à partir de 1986, les Duvaliers étaient partis et quitté pays. Donc, paysans, toute masse peuple dans le quartier populaire commençaient à réclamer droit pour vivre tant que monde.
But nevertheless, when the Duvalier regime was overthrown, the peasantry and the masses in general started demanding the right to live as human beings.
Ils ont commencé à faire revendication pour gagner terre pour travail, revendication pour gagner l'école, revendication pour joindre soins santé.
They started demanding the ownership of the land, the right to go to school, and the right to have health care.
Mais droit ça yo, c'est un droit yo toujours refusé gros majorité population haïtienne.
These rights have always been denied the Haitian population.
Et après 86, et peuple là, masse paysan yo commencé prendre la parole, yo commencé prendre radio pour yo capable réclamer un partage et gâteau national là, même les petits.
And since 1986, the peasantry, the masses in Haiti, started demanding the right to talk using radio, and demanding also that the national cake, no matter how small it was, should be shared by everybody.
Cependant, et tout droit ça yo, comme petit groupe qui toujours a dominé le pays a refusé yo, eh bien, c'était toujours massacre et dans paysannerie depuis 86, c'est juste arrivé journée aujourd'hui.
And since the people in power, the little group in power, didn't want to abandon this privilege and give those rights to the people, we have witnessed a lot of massacres in Haiti, massacres of the peasantry since 1986.
C'est 29 novembre et 87, tu as une tentative pour organiser élection libre dans le pays, eh bien, yo te bien peuple là dans salle jour ça.
November 29, 1987, there was an attempt to have free election in Haiti. Result, massacre, and the people were bloodied all over the place.
Et à partir du moment ça, le peuple là pas te croire dans question élection parce que yo te toujours pensé c'est même bagaille là qui va arriver.
The people stopped believing in elections, thinking that the same thing would happen again and again.
Cependant, et après 86, et
Secondly, we are reporting and keeping active in the New England area, and I invite you to ask any of us, are there any other members of the delegation here? They're probably all over at RCC getting ready to leave. But Basile, Jean-Baptiste, and myself are the co-chairs, and we'll be happy to have you participate in our deliberations and our meetings. And our third activity is to work to end U.S. policy, and thus the forum tonight. We believe that the policy is not good, it's not viable, it's not democratic, and others will tell you about that. So on behalf of the New England delegation and all its sponsoring and co-sponsoring organizations, let me welcome you this evening. In one of his most celebrated works, and you probably heard him on the radio last month, I believe it was, Michel Rolph-Trouillot, who is clearly one of Haiti's most well-known scholars, in his 1990 book, Haiti, State Against Nation, had this to say, and I quote, "For better or worse, the size and social resilience of the peasantry are important aspects of the uniqueness of Haiti as an American nation. While Haitian peasants cannot be blamed for the institutions that regulate the state or for the transfer of surplus out of the countryside, their inflexible attachment to a labor process that is unlikely to generate growth or increase productivity is certainly part of the Haitian dilemma. Ultimately, there is only one Haitian question, that of the peasantry. For it is in the contradictions of the peasantry that the resources, stakes, and predictions of the nation intertwine. How to measure the limits and potential of this peasantry against the economic, social, and political and cultural problems remains an important problem. But any solution to the Haitian crisis must face the peasant question. It must find its roots in the resources of that peasantry, the very same resources that have contributed to the fortunes of thousands of Haitians and foreigners during a century and a half of unbridled exploitation. And to do this, Haitians must create institutional channels through which all sectors within the peasantry can participate in a political debate from which they have been too long excluded. Both steps in turn require that intellectuals, politicians, and planners talk less about or for the peasantry and begin listening more attentively to what its diverse subgroups have said in the past and have to say now about their own future. The long overdue reconciliation of nation and state requires the fundamental understanding that in Haiti, the peasantry is the nation." End of quote. To open our conversation on U.S. policy in Haiti, I'd like to present the founder of the Papaye Peasant Movement, MPP, which is the largest and oldest peasant movement in Haiti, founded in 1973. This leader is currently the spokesperson for the movement and for the National Peasant Congress. He's also the former member of the Presidential Commission of President Aristide, and right now he serves as a member of President Aristide's private cabinet. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce to you Chavannes Jean Baptist.
Nan non peuple haïtien, spécialement nan non tout mouvement paysan.
In the name of the Haitian people and in the name of the peasant movement in Haiti,
Moi vle ban nou yon salutation chargée ak soleil parce que ici à nous en bas Freddy.
I want to give you a salute
filled with sunshine, because I've noticed that you have a lot of cold here.
Bon, dans le pays d'Haïti, nous gagnons soleil, mais même côté et nous gagnons un coup d'État qui a crasé le peuple là depuis plus passé 2 ans.
In Haiti, we do have sunshine, but on the other hand, we have a coup d'etat that is killing our people and has been in place for about 2 years.
Et pour nous comprendre le coup d'État ça, il faut que nous fassions monter dans l'histoire d'Haïti.
To understand this coup d'etat, we have to go back in Haitian history.
Et dans le pays d'Haïti, depuis après l'indépendance, c'est toujours un si pon y a moun grand propriétaire terrien et gros commerçants et l'armée d'Haïti qui était toujours fabriqué tout le gouvernement.
In Haiti, since independence in 1804, only a little group of people made of big landowners, the Haitian army, have fabricated all the governments we have had.
Gros majorité population pas de gagner pour participer, pas de gagner pour fourrer bouche li dans affaires politiques pays.
The majority of the population never had the right to intervene in political affairs in Haiti.
Et quant à paysans yo qui représentaient 80% de la population, eh bien, ils ont toujours en bas toute qualité exploitation, toute qualité injustice.
As far as the peasantry, representing about 80% of our population, they have always been subject to very, very hard exploitation.
Et dictature du Valier, et avec système Makout là, t'es arrivé